Is it possible to remember your past life? Yes, it is. Now, I remember as a kid, I used to get dreams about my past lives. Generally, in the middle of the night, I would start getting these intense memories about places and times long ago. One of my first past life memories was a soldier during the French Revolution. And I saw somebody being guillotined, and there was a massive square with thousands of cheering people, happy that this poor person was being guillotined. And I remember being so shocked that people were cheering this horrific experience. I've had many more dreams of past lives, but I have to admit, of course, not everybody will remember their past lives spontaneously. Is there anything we can do to remember our past lives? How does it work? Is there a method? Yes, there is. As a matter of fact, it is not as hard as you think it is. The way we start remembering our past lives is to place ourselves in a very comfortable position. You lay down on a bed, or perhaps on a yoga mat, or on the couch, and you create an environment of relaxation. Now, why relaxation? In our normal state of mind, we are mostly unable to remember. Why? Because in my normal state of mind, I am this body, I'm this person. I'm identified with my body. And then when I'm this body, obviously it's hard to fathom the idea that I'm also attached, or I was attached to another body. So the concept here is the more I'm attached to this body, to my current situation, the more I'm identified with it, the more difficult it becomes to remember something other than this. So I have to kind of get myself in a different state of mind. In other words, I have to detach myself to some degree from this body and also the mind. Why the mind? Because the mind holds all the ideas that I'm this person. Like, I was born in this country, I was born with these parents, I'm born under these circumstances, this environment, and as a small kid, I have accepted all of this to be so. It's not up for debate that I am born with these parents, under this environment, with this body. I've learned to accept that this is my identity. But hold your thought, because if indeed I believe in past lives, that means this is just one of my many theater performances, one of the many dramas I have been living and I am living through now. So keeping that in mind, I start to think, wait a minute, how come I take all of this so seriously? How come I am so identified with these circumstances? How come I truly believe I'm the son of these parents and I am really of this nationality? And so on and so forth. So I have identified myself with these circumstances, and I cannot conceive of the fact that perhaps this is just a temporary training program. Now, once I start to really think this through, then I have already broken the first, you can say, chain in the embodiment, the identification with this persona. Because once I start to realize, wait a minute, this is just one of my many plays, I now have an opening in my mind, in my thinking, through which I can start to detach myself. And I could consider the possibility that, hey, could I look at this situation from the outside in? Because I have lived many lives. This is one, this is two, this is three. I have lived many, many, many. So is there, you can say, a point of detachment, a state of being that would be enable me to kind of look at it from a distance? Now, the mind is the one that holds all these identifications, that holds all these ideas that I'm this and this and this. So even the mind is not the place from from where you look at all these past lives, because the mind is the conditioning. So the body is not the place to be, the mind is not the place to be, but the notion here is that who incarnates? It is my soul. And so is there a possibility that I can place myself in more of a soul state? See, when we think about soul, we think about some place after death, that I am out of my body and I'm in the soul state. But it is very much possible in the here and now to be in a state of soul awareness. Now, how do I do that? How do I get myself detached from this body and mind consciousness into a higher form of awareness? For that, I have to meditate, or I have to use some sort of self-hypnotic meditative process. Now, I call this self-hypnotic state and meditation, it's one and the same thing. It's just words. What it really means is I'm changing the brain frequency, right? So in my densest situation, I'm a body, my brain is in a very restless state. When I move from body into thoughts, you can see these brain waves kind of shrinking and stretching. And when I go deeper still in my meditation, in my contemplation, my brain waves even quiet down more and more and more. And what starts happening? That the soul that I am starts to manifest. The soul is not somewhere else. The soul is here. This is who I really am. It is kind of hidden behind this body and mind. So which says that if the more I am body and the more I feel mind, the less I'm aware of my true center. So the technique is to move within. Now you do that through meditation, calming these brain waves. There's many ways to do it. Any sort of guided meditation process, any sort of deep reflection, pranayama, breath work will make those waves calm down big time, because pranayama, breath work, balances the left and right hemisphere of the mind, makes it evened out. And so once these brain waves even out, the self, the light of the self starts to manifest through this calm mind. And in that state, I have shifted my center of attention from body to mind to spirit. Now I am detached. I can look at this body and mind from a distance and kind of objectify my own existence in this incarnation. I can say, this is just one of my many births. And in this state of mind, you can start to truly reflect. You can start to think like, where is this going? Is this going where and how I want it to be? But here also the option appears that, wait, there are other forms of existence that I have, lived, that I have, been enjoying or suffering. And so step number one is to get from this body consciousness to mind consciousness to spirit consciousness. But then I have to kind of start becoming aware of these past lives. How do I do that? Now, of course, you set your intention. The intention is I want to know about my past lives. How do I manifest these memories? Because they are here. These memories are here attached to in my subtle body. I carry all these imprints with me. And the subtle body is not the physical body, it's not even the mind, it is that which influences the mind. And that subtle body is kind of a sheath that is wrapped around the soul. And it carries all the memories and imprints of my existence. You may be very well familiar with the concept of the Akashic record. The Akashic record is more the collective. And the subtle body is more the individual. But they are kind of the same substance. The one is more attached to my soul, the other one is more universal. And this universal consciousness also contains memories of my existence, because you can say they are the books of my past experiences, because they're part of the universal history as well. So everything is there available too, but it's also more specifically wrapped around my soul. It is not the soul, mind you. The idea is to eventually, after many, many lifetimes, is to detach myself from from this subtle body altogether and make even that completely translucent and detached from it, that only the soul state remains. That is that enlightenment. Now, as I make this intention, while I lay down, place myself in this really calm state of mind, I say, I want to know about my past lives. What can I, retrieve from this subtle body? The mistake we make is that we start thinking in terms of visuals only. I'm laying down and saying, well, I'm not seeing anything. Why is it not here? Oh, it's not working. But what we forget is that the impressions that have been made in my past are not just visuals. They could be mental impressions. For example, let's say in a past life I've gone through a shock experience. Perhaps, I experienced a trauma of some kind, and it really upset my whole being, and it made me go on a different path in that past life. And in that junction of that experience, the shock really impacted me. But the shock may not have been as much as a visual shock as it was an experiential shock. Like something happened, somebody died, or a situation changed, or I got really hurt, and the pain of that experience has been internalized, the memory of that experience. Now, as long as I'm not blind at that moment, I could, of course, remember and attached with this trauma, there were visuals and images as to where this took place and how it took place. But the essence of the experience was not the visual. It was the loss, or it was the pain or the hurt, which has been internalized in a way other than visuals. The visuals may have been attached to it, but they were not primary to the experience. So then when I start to remember my past life, suddenly I may get a feeling overcome me, like a shiver, or I'm not feeling well, or why is this kind of weird feeling come over me? What is that? But I'm expecting to see some image, and I don't understand why I feel this way, and then I dismiss it as, oh, I don't know what's going on, but I have this weird feeling, but I'm not seeing anything. But in reality, what you just did, you just got in touch with the trauma of that past life, which did not manifest as a visual at all, because it was not stored primarily as a visual. So the secret here is to be open to all your senses. It could be a sound. For example, is it not true that a lot of soldiers, and we may have all been soldiers in past lives, they get traumatized by loud noises. That's why PTSD originally was called shell shock, right? My dad, who was in the jungle war in Indonesia, used to tell me, and also during the Second World War when he was a kid, he used to tell me about the terror of this V1 and the V2 bombs rockets being launched. And then he said there was a particular sound that when they are about to land, kind of a beeping, hissing sound, and that caused terror in all the people in the area, because they knew that sound means impending bombs. And so even later in his life, certain noises would, rattle him, because the association of the terror with the sound. And so it was primarily the sound that was stored. And so in a past life, in memory, when you're laying down and suddenly you start to hear sounds, and you have to then tune into that sound or tune into that feeling, like, what is this feeling? Where is this coming from? It could be a smell. Is it not true? I remember sometimes walking into an old building, and suddenly there's a smell, and I recognize the smell. I haven't smelled this for like 30 years. And I remember the other day I was in some little museum, and it smelled exactly, I couldn't locate what the smell was, but it was so clear to me. I knew what that smell was. And suddenly it came to me, and I realized, oh my God, this was the same smell as my primary school building. And it flashed me back like 50 years. And I was like, oh my God, I haven't smelled this. I haven't thought about this for like half a century. So you see, so these memories can be triggered by smell, by sound, by feeling, or just a knowing. For example, you lay down in your calm situation and you are reflecting on you're setting the intention, I want to remember my past life, I'm laying down, I'm kind of listening, I'm kind of feeling, I'm kind of waiting, and suddenly there is a knowing. You know that something happened. A particular thought comes to you, it bubbles up in your mind, that seems to be random. And that thought, is it a visual? Yes and no. I mean, if you allow your imagination to follow that thought, suddenly a whole world may open up. And you will find suddenly yourself transported back into that thought. Sometimes we call it a distraction, like a kid may be sitting in his classroom and the kid is very imaginative, the kid is very sensitive, and it's kind of drifting off while the teacher is speaking into their own thoughts. He follows an entire world, a stream. And so you're allowing yourself to be carried away. So regression is very much like that. And the art here is not to doubt it. The art is to go along with it and just go with the flow. And I always say to our clients, imagination is the lubricant of past life memory, because you allow your imagination to carry you. And you may say, well, I don't want to imagine, I want to know if it's sure. But imagination is just the faculty to allow yourself to follow that stream, the impulse that comes from within. Because where is this impulse coming from? Maybe you're not imagining. Could we not say that the capacity to imagine must be derived from past life memories? Why is one child able to imagine or visualize something so well, whereas somebody else is not? Because they have experienced that. They may not remember it. And then we call it imagination. Imagination is basically the word that we give something that we don't know where this is coming from. But this comes from past impulses, past memories. Everything we have experienced will allow us the capacity to imagine, because that is basically the language of the past. Imagination is the language of the past. So the secret here is then to follow all the senses, whatever comes up, to allow and to follow the imagination like a child and go with it. And before you know it, you lay down, and suddenly 10 minutes later you kind of come to your senses and you realize, oh my God, I was just following a whole stream of thought that took me to this place. This is also how you connect to the divine realms, by allowing yourself to follow the stream. And the critic here fails. If you start doubting and criticizing everything, what happens is you stay in the body, you stay in the mind, because the critic says, oh, only this is true. Only this body and mind and this world is true. And basically you confine yourself to the paradigm. You confine yourself to this that is seen, to the empirical, to the senses of this world, and you say, only this, what I can see, is real. It's your choice. If you say this is the only thing that is real, then this is the only thing that is real. But if you allow the possibility that, I have lived before, I am the result of all my past experiences, and somehow I still carry these with me, then I allow myself to travel. So this is basically the concept and the technique of how to start remembering your past lives. And if you have any questions or comments, any sort of insights, please feel free to share in the comments, and like and subscribe if you want to hear more of this kind of content. Thank you so much, and till the next time.